Hello everyone and welcome back to Wigwam Gaming. Today we're going to review Castlevania, the show. It's a TV show, it's a game that is in my wheelhouse. Castlevania, the Netflix Attack on Titan, is the latest show to hit the streaming Goliath Netflix. It is an adult animated horror series based on Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse. It all started way back in 2007 when Frederator, yes, that Frederator, bought the rights to Castlevania 3 the game with the intention of making an adult animated straight-to-home video released movie. For this, they tapped Warren Ellis to write the script. Warren Ellis you will of course not know because he is a writer and writers never get credit for anything they do. You may be familiar with some of his projects though. He's worked on Red, Dead Space, and even Iron Man 3. Which we won't hold against him because no one man is to blame for the sins of Iron Man 3. Quickly after getting started on the project, Ellis decided that one movie simply wouldn't be enough to tell the story of Castlevania 3. So, ignoring the directions of the studio, he went ahead and split it into a trilogy and started writing the script for the first movie. He had help from Castlevania producer Koji Igarashi, who helped him flesh out the backstory and find a logical place in the timeline for the story to happen. He also made Ellis rewrite the script 8 times, much to Ellis's dismay. During this time, Ellis also chose to drop the character Grant Dynasty from the movie, as he felt the pirate was misplaced in the setting. He didn't have time to develop the character properly, and also I assume he hated his dumb face and his stupid name. So after all this work from Konami, Warren Ellis, and Frederator Studios, the project was ready to begin. Except it didn't. No, instead it entered development hell for almost a decade. At one point in 2012, it was actually almost made into a live-action movie that was supposed to compete with Underworld, as you may know it, the blue vampire movie. Studios wanted something that could compete with Underworld in scope and with a comparable budget, which is Hollywood talk for would have sucked a great big donkey dick and been a big giant cash grab. Luckily for us, Castlevania found redemption in 2015 when Sam Dietz, a relatively unknown director from the relatively unknown animation studio, Powerhouse Animation Studios, got the script, brought it to Netflix, and managed to broker out a deal. Netflix accepted, only making minor changes to the original 2007 script to adapt it to a TV series. Frederator jumped in to help produce the show, and finally, nearly a decade later, we get to enjoy Castlevania. Oh man, this show is brutally good, and I mean heavy emphasis on brutally. Like, brutally is bold, underlined, and just like dripping blood. So, possible spoilers ahead. I'm only gonna go through the first episode in detail, but you've been warned. Also, this game came out in 1989, so the statute of limitations on spoilers is expired. The very first scene of the show expertly sets up the tone of the show. We open to a field filled with impaled skulls on spikes, leading up to a mysterious bat-vomiting castle. We see a woman stab a bat and discard its bloody carcass. Right away, you're introduced to a show that is going to be violent and beautiful. The large, well-detailed backgrounds are consistent throughout the show, so we continue on to see that a woman has entered Dracula's keep. We get some back-and-forth banter that sets up Dracula to be a truly terrifying, slightly creepy badass, and the woman to be a take-no-shit scientist. They set up some sexual tension.
I've crossed the threshold of your home and you haven't offered me a drink or even to take my coat.
What if I took a drink from you?
And then it's off we go into the future, where the woman is being burned at the stake. Oh, wait, what? Like actually being burned, not about to be burned and going to be saved any second by some hero, but rather actually dying a horrific and gruesome death at the hand of this guy, the asshole cardinal that represents the church. I'll let you know right now, Dracula is not the good guy in Castlevania, but he is certainly not the worst bad guy. That would go to almost anybody from the church in this series. This guy is just immediately loathsome. Anyways, we cut back to Dracula, who is dressed as a normal bloke and uncharacteristically walking around town without putting anyone's head on spikes. He returns to his home where we learn that he married the nice woman who is currently being burned. As you can imagine, the king of vampires and near godlike hellspawn that he is, doesn't really take it super well. He appears in front of the townsfolk in the most badass way ever, basically FaceTime, except instead of an iPhone, it's an actual bonfire. He issues a warning that in 1 year, he is going to commit genocide on the entire human race, starting right here in their wonderful little hometown, and that everyone should basically kiss their sweet asses goodbye because hell is coming for them. Now, this is where a lesser show would spend a season and a half building up to Dracula creating his army of the dead, and the townspeople trying to stop him, and blah 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 blah, but nope! Castlevania don't fuck around like that. We get a brief scene explaining that Dracula is waiting a year so that he can amass his army, and to introduce this mysterious figure in Dracula's castle who's all like, hey, mass murder would be appropriate, but I kinda have to draw the line at full-on genocide, and Dracula is like, fuck you, I do what I want, and then it cuts to a blood splatter. Oh my gosh, I wonder if Dracula died. And you don't have to wait to find out. We skip to 1 year ahead where, of course, the people have chosen not to believe Dracula's warning, which I feel is probably the most believable thing that they could have done with the story. I mean, just look at the way that people treat global warming, and tell me you think that they would take Dracula's genocide threat any more seriously. You probably didn't believe that Dracula was stopped in that little side scene, but for a brief moment, the show wants you to consider that maybe he did. Everything sure seems fine, except for this guy's terrifying face and neck. The suspense builds as the clouds start to darken, and that's when the blood starts to rain down. Also, what I could only call hell fetuses rain down. The citizens' reactions are a mix between total shock and panic. Then the violence starts. I was a huge fan of this initial fake out right here. We think, hey, maybe they're pulling punches. It's kind of violent, but that's not too bad. Oh my god, look at her face! And that guy got cut in half! So this continues for a while, and if you're a fan of this kind of thing, it's just super well done. Well animated, horrifying visuals, and just an incredible setup for the series. After this, we time skip ahead to meet Trevor Belmont, early ancestor of Simon Belmont. Not Simon Belmont. From this point forward, the story shifts focus to follow Trevor Belmont. He's a very flawed hero, and we'll spend most of the rest of Season 1 running through his motivations to take on Dracula and finish setting up the story that's coming down the road. He meets some friends who will help him along the way, we learn more about his family and the backstory of Castlevania and all sorts of good stuff that I'm not gonna spoil for you, because you'll just have to watch that part yourself. So one thing you should know going into this series is that you don't need to know anything about Castlevania to enjoy the show. I certainly didn't. I have played 0 Castlevania games. The show does do an amazing job of staying true to the source material. They even went so far as to have Konami checking for continuity errors, correcting things as simple as, hey, that person has that weapon in the wrong hand, or simple things like that. But the show is great independent of this information. It's everything a true adaptation should be. It's as true to the source material as it possibly can be, but it's still totally accessible to newcomers. The show is so much more than just an homage to Castlevania that fans will like. It's an actually compelling, dark story that anybody can like. But the show goes so much further than that as well. Visually and musically, the show is always bringing its A game. The visuals are very Japanese anime inspired, particularly the well-detailed backgrounds and beautiful gradients that compose most of the sky and outside shots. They're all very reminiscent of Attack on Titan. There are moments where the visuals may seem lower budget than others, but never any moments where there is a lack of care or love put into them. Each frame is designed to stand alone and impress, and for the most part, they certainly do. The monsters are horrific, the settings are beautiful, and the action is well animated. Musically, the score always hits the mark as well, setting the tone, playing with your emotions, just generally being great to listen to, all the things that a score should be. So, in conclusion, I would say the only stipulation to enjoying Castlevania that you might have going into this series would be your tolerance for adult, violent, horrific things. Castlevania is not one to pull punches, or sword swipes, or demon claws, or whatever horrific thing it's murdering people with. It's not quite gore porn like Elfen Lied was, and in fact I would say it's even slightly less violent than Attack on Titan. It is still, however, mature content, and that's not gonna be for everyone. But if you don't mind that kind of thing, go check out Castlevania right now. Honestly, I think it may be one of the best video game adaptations into a TV or movie ever. Just well scripted, well acted, great visuals, it just leaves you wanting more. And, lucky for us, Season 1 represents that first movie that Warren Ellis scripted. Season 2 will be coming out in 2018, it will feature 8 episodes, and it will wrap up the other 2 parts of the trilogy that Warren Ellis had originally intended. Even better, after wrapping up this storyline, Warren Ellis has stated that he would like to consider doing other Castlevania stories. He said that he views Castlevania as a story of a family taking place over many generations, so if you like Trevor Belmont's story that's happening right now, there's always a great chance that we might get other stories like Simon Belmont, or that's the only one I know. But hey, that's just my opinion on the show. Have you seen Castlevania? Did you enjoy it? Let me know down below in the comments. as well as if this is your first time here, consider subscribing for more. I do video game reviews, TV reviews, movie reviews, whatever I want to do, I do. So, I love your beautiful faces, thank you for joining me, and I will catch you all in the next video. Bye-bye.